Hello and welcome to the Crone Codes, a gathering place for women of all ages and all stages to remember your worth, your purpose, and your power. I'm your host, the creator and resident crone, Joan Advent. Hi.
Hello.
Welcome to the Crone Codes podcast. I'm your host, the creator and resident crone, Joan Advent, and I am here today with one of my dearest soul sisters and friends, Maria Rodriguez. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. So Maria has agreed to join me in a conversation today about the Crone Codes. We're going to talk about the origin story. We're going to talk about why the Crone Codes matter, who this is for, and how this podcast will hopefully serve you moving forward. So I really wanted to start with a commitment that I made. So about 18 months ago, I made a commitment. And it was one of those commitments that just spontaneously came through me. And I didn't realize the implications it would have. And I didn't realize that it actually was the conception moment for this podcast. So I want to back up a little bit and tell you the story about how that commitment came to occur. So almost 2 years ago, I had just turned 59, and my daughter was taking a gap year. She had finished school, and I had this inspiration to create a mother-daughter retreat. And I had been wanting to do destination retreats for as long as I can remember. And years prior, I had the opportunity to swim with wild dolphin in Bimini with a mentor of mine. And so things came together, and it felt like this call, this higher call, and also this destiny, because the opportunity came together in a way that I couldn't turn away. And so, like many things where we long to create something greater, we're kind of led step by step, and we receive a vision. And then over time, that vision may get tweaked or refined or adjusted. Well, midway through my journey to creating this retreat, things started shifting in ways that sent me into some panic and into a deep crisis of faith. In fact, Maria
I
had
remember.
a front row seat. Yeah. Yeah. And it brought me to, probably the most profound crisis in faith that I had had in decades. And I sought out the support of a wise young healer who I knew was deeply grounded in faith. And she took me on a healing journey into my body, into the inner landscapes of my body, to retrieve my faith. And along with that, she let me know that we were going on a journey to claim my crone.
Ooh,
Yes,
wow.
exactly. And I was like, okay, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I had been to some croning ceremonies for friends of mine who were older than me. And I had always felt a little kind of uneasy with that, like something just, it didn't have a kind of experience. It just something didn't feel quite right. So we went through the healing journey, and I did, in fact, reclaim and reground my faith in a deeper way. And I also felt the truth of what she had been saying to me, that claiming the crone was a really important mantle and archetype as I was preparing to make this transition with my 60th birthday that was coming up. And as it turned out, the retreat was shifting. And so it was not going to be strictly a mother-daughter retreat. It was shifting into a retreat for women in all the stages of life and all the facets and generations of our experience. So I was seeing that event, which was in June, this stepping into my cronehood. But I was still in this kind of, wearing something that doesn't quite feel comfortable with it. And so I looked on Google, as we do, to find the definition of the crone. Well,
Yeah, I was wondering how you think of crone and what that means.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I will tell you what I discovered was that, according to Google, at least at that point, I haven't looked recently, that a crone is a ugly, evil-looking, old woman. Yeah.
Hmm, that's lovely. Like that's not what we want.
Right. And when I read that, something in my womb space, like, literally dropped. Like, I felt like kicked in the stomach. I felt this pain. And today I can recognize, like, this is an absolute inversion of all the majesty and the truth
Hmm.
of the essence of the crone. I know that today, but at that time I was struggling, and I just felt the weight and the anguish, and I was considering some of the other mantles that women of our age are often taking on, like the wise woman or the healer, the priestess, the shaman. And I thought that those are they are like so much more sexy and cool, or the queen. you know
Yeah.
so many women who are embracing that archetype, like, those are so much more cool and sexy. And I could still feel the rightness of taking on this mantle as the crone. And that is when my commitment was made.
Hmm.
And my commitment was to reclaim that title and that mantle and that archetype, to cleanse it, to take it off the cultural trash heap, and to, both for myself and for other women, to reclaim it. Like, to just think about, the maidens and the mothers. Initially, maiden, mother, and crone, those were the foundational archetypes for us as women. And I realized that crone was the only title, like, it was the only mantle that included all of it.
Hmm.
It included all of it. It includes the innocence and the wonder of our child. It includes the passion of our maiden. It includes the fierce love and protector that we develop as mothers and the sovereignty we embrace as queens. And it brings in the wisdom of a life lived. And to call ourselves anything other than a crone is a minimizing of who we really are.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So that's why I'm here. That's why I am here. That's why I created the Crone Codes. I had a podcast years ago, Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow, which I loved. And I have been away from podcasting for some time now. And I kept getting this nudge to get back into it. And frankly, it was again like the call of these younger women in my life who were saying, I miss hearing your voice. Like, I miss hearing your wisdom. I miss, and I've also heard like some of these younger women who are wise in their own right, but are saying, like, where are the elders?
Yeah,
Like,
we
where
need
are,
that. Mhm.
say that again.
That we need that. We need that. It's not.
Yes. Yes. We need the elders. And I was remembering. So part of my story is I am in recovery for alcoholism and have been since my 20s.
Wow.
And the place that really grounded my recovery for me was this women's meeting that I attended. And the average age was probably like in the 60s. So I was in this room full of women who had lived all the stages of life that I was looking ahead to. And to have that experience that I could lean into and draw upon was invaluable.
What a blessing. Wow.
Exactly. And so that's what I am here to create through the Crone Codes. And I want to just name that from my lens, the Crone Codes are not something that we find when we cross the threshold of, like me, like turning 60, or like us.
Mhm. We're the same age.
Yes, we are. But it again is really, it's the codes that we gather throughout the whole arc of our experience as girls, as maidens, as mothers, whether we are mothering human children or fur babies or mothering movements or mothering businesses or creative projects as we're stepping into the queen. It's like all of those challenges, all of those initiations, all of those things that we think are going to break us. When we're on a conscious journey and when we meet those challenges, we harvest. I mean, as someone who is a conscious woman and someone who is supporting others,
Mhm.
what we gather.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I've been thinking so much about the second innocence, the return to innocence. So I was really struck by you including the child, because often you just hear maid and mother crone. You don't, and starting to hear more queen, but to include the child and to return to that core innocence, but in a wise way rather than a naive way, because we're, you know,
Yeah.
including the wisdom of the crone and the other stages. That's really, it feels like the whole being, all of it.
Yes. Yes. The multidimensionality of both the arc of our evolution as women, as well as all the dimensions of whether it's the relational aspect or the opening to our spiritual gifts or opening to our purpose or opening to our, excuse me, our just way of being in service in the world. That it's like Crone is this incredible, it's almost like dubbing someone. I dubbed the crone, but we do,
Anointing.
right, an anointing. Thank you. But it's self-anointed in a
Mhm.
way. Like we are anointing ourselves through each initiation, through each challenge, through each kind of coming home to the woman that we came into this life to be
Mhm.
and getting to share the wisdom. And I was remembering how I know it's killer whales. I think it's also elephants and humans are the three species where women live, or the females live past menopause.
Mm.
And they are those two species, the elephants and the killer whales, the the females, like the matriarchs, play a very important role.
Mm.
And in my experience, so many women who reach our age in some manner begin to question, like if they don't have a strong sense of legacy or a strong sense of place or contribution, they can really start to question. And certainly culture and like the Google definition
Yeah.
play into that, but we start to question how we're meant to contribute if we have anything to offer now that the children are gone, or now that maybe we don't have the looks that we used to have, or we don't have the attention that we used to have. And so this space is in part created for you, for women like that,
Mm.
women who are holding on to some sense of, in a way, like the best is yet to come.
Mm. Are you saying that the podcast is primarily for women over 60 or over 55 or?
No, I'm not saying that. I really created this podcast for women at every stage,
Okay.
women who are on a conscious journey of awakening, of opening up to their gifts and their purpose, women who would like to aspire to the best is yet to come, like with each decade. I don't know what it's been like for you, but for me personally, every decade of my life has been better than the last.
Yes.
And as I would say, I crossed over into being a baby crone because I feel like we have decades ahead of us in this stage. I only expect that each decade will get better. So it's both an invitation for women of our age or stage of life, mid 50s to into the 60s, to remember how important it is for you to own your impact. And it's just the way that you make the ripple effect in your life. It doesn't mean you have to start a movement, although you may. It doesn't mean you have to create the next great work, although you may. It's just the way that you remember that you matter.
Mhm.
And it's for the women who are in the stages as a maiden, discovering their purpose, and for the young mothers, and for the seasoned mothers who are facing, as we know, the initiations and challenges don't stop. once your children grow up.
Yep. Yes, we know that well.
Yes, yes. So my guests and I are going to be sharing stories and unpacking wisdom for like the whole arc
Okay.
development. And I will be having guests who are at different stages in the journey. So I'll be having guests who are mothers. I'll be having guests who are in the maiden stage. And I may even have some men as guests
Oh, okay.
in ways that they can illuminate and call us to, I would say, our greatness and our fullness of power and
Mm.
presence as women.
Power and presence. You don't usually hear those two together. Those two words, concepts together, power and presence. Hmm.
Yes. Yes. So I'm just tuning in to see what else needs to be shared. Well, I can tell you that I will be recording episodes that will be released twice a month.
Okay.
So I plan to have one interview, so to speak, and then one, we'll say, sharing of my own wisdom codes, which may be like today with a friend, or it may be in a solo format. That remains to be seen. I actually tried to record this episode on my own. And let's just say my perfectionism and my micromanagement of it like took over. It just, and then I was like, why not invite a friend?
And isn't that part of being tuned into the feminine is to go to let yourself be led and to be creative and to you have a plan, but then you may be redirected, right?
Exactly, exactly. Oh, and that's the other piece I want to name because it feels important. I realized that my dolphin retreat, which happened after my commitment, which was my first, we'll say, consecration as my crone, my first anointing, became, as I said, this beautiful multi-generational group of women that
Mm,
came together. My own daughter was there, which was
wow.
so powerful. So there were two mother-daughter sets. There were wise women, there were queens, there were other rising crones. It was like the culmination of what I was being called to create. And then a few months later, my birthday came and I had this ecstatic dance party.
Oh, that sounds lovely. Fun.
Yes, on the eve of my 60th birthday, I had this ecstatic dance party. And again, I was surrounded by mothers and maidens and wise women and priestesses and aspiring crones. And again, so that's the piece that came out of recording this on my own is I realized that thread. And then I was called to create this and to call us all together again in a larger sense, in a more global sense, to say, let's remember like that we're all on this journey together. I have this vision of us like walking this path together to the fullness of who we are, to that power and that presence. And sometimes we're walking like you and I are, is with women in the same stage of life that we're in. But sometimes we are available to be present, to support someone who is following in our footsteps. Or we have those women in our lives. I know you have someone in your life who is a mentor for you, who has more lived experience.
Right. Yeah, the elders. I love that you said the rising crone.
Mm.
And I just had never seen the crone as having stages. So I think that's really, and rising crone just has this lovely energy to it. And I also love the visual, Joan, of your audience, of who your beloveds, of who you're here to serve, both on the boat in Bimini and then in your ecstatic dance class. Like you were literally given a visual, right? Of who this offer, who called in this offering, really.
Mm. Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah, so it's my honor and my pleasure to offer you this gift and this chance to journey with me and with my guests. And I will say that I was called to create an opportunity to deepen as well. So, with my guests, like the wise women, the wise souls that will be offering the various aspects of the Crone Codes, because this podcast is housed on Substack, I wanted it to be free and available. And I wanted to create an opportunity to go deeper. So
Mm.
there will be a unique paid community for bonus content that will offer prompts and resources and
Mm.
tools and exercises beyond the wisdom that's offered in these podcast episodes. So there will be bonus content. And I will have in the show notes all the ways that you can explore that. You can subscribe to that. Yeah.
Very exciting. Could you give us a few examples of what the codes are, what some of the guests would be, or I'm just curious if that would be.
Yes. So I know that one of the guests who I will be interviewing soon, and her episode is coming out with this one, will be about the big ask, which is about giving voice to like our visions or our deepest heart's desire, but making those big asks from a place of our expanded joy, from our places of being plugged in to the, again, power and presence within us and also in life. But it's like inviting others to join us in creating something even bigger. And we'll be having guests who will be talking about things like relationship and our divine union and how to create more partnership with our partners, whether we're just starting out or whether we have been at this for a while. We'll be having things about aging,
Mm.
conscious aging, and how we come to terms with aging and beauty and really all those things that the Google definition, the ugly,
Yeah,
the,
old.
the old, the evil, like that's the prescription for women.
Hag,
You have to
really.
be
Yeah.
good. You have to be pleasing. You have to be youthful. So the codes will be related to our spiritual connection, towards being our authentic self, towards all the dimensions of just living as a woman in this day and age. Does that answer the question?
Yes, yes. And I can see how the bonus membership is going to be so helpful to take what you are inspired by or curious about and then go deeper and apply it to your own life. I can already see, ooh, I need the big ask bonus. It goes so beautifully together. I
Mm,
love that.
thank you. Yes. Well, again, I'm listening, like I'm tuned in and I'm listening to what I'm being guided to create, which is one of the one of the main and foundational codes for us as Crones is learning to trust that inner wisdom,
Mm,
learning to follow, just follow where we are led by that source of wisdom within us. To
I
meet,
love it.
yes, to meet what shows up and lean into the challenges, get the support and the resources we need to overcome or to transmute or to transform. And then it's taking the next step, becoming the next larger version of who we're here to be.
It's almost like blueprints. It feels like blueprints for different areas of our life and different developmental tasks, and how lovely to have that for women in different stages. Like I'm thinking of our daughters who are young adults, and
Yes.
to have some sense of direction and some practical strategies for navigating those developmental challenges. And
Exactly. It's like trusting, like, wouldn't it have been nice, Maria, if we had learned to kind of trust and embrace who we were so much sooner?
yes, yes, and I see that the women are starting sooner. There are a lot of women that are starting way sooner than I did.
Yes.
And we were in the field. And so we were lucky that we had all this access to resources, and still we didn't. you know,
Right. Well, we had to overcome so much cultural programming, and there are ways in which each generation does the heavy lifting for the generations that are coming
yes.
behind them. And we also receive the gifts of the, like the wisdom, their wisdom that they're bringing in. And I also think about the perimenopausal passage, just
Mm.
some of those
Yes.
nitty gritty physical, yeah, real life things that so many women are navigating. And I remember that stage. So to have guests on who can speak to those codes as well of how to do that in a way that's both the most loving of ourself and kind to ourself and easeful.
And even understanding it, getting the knowledge of what's happening in our own body and how to
Exactly.
help our body, how to help ourselves.
Precisely. How to help ourselves. And similarly with, I think about the journey of motherhood and becoming a mother and just some of the ways that challenges that I remember facing around childbirth and that birthing experience are still present today. And there's a lot that's shifting about that, but there are still many young women who are experiencing whether it's traumatic events related to childbirth or just not knowing that they have, again, a voice or a say in how to
Mhm.
navigate that passage.
And the permission to do it a lot of different ways rather than
Yes.
this way is the right way or this way is the right way. That's what I think a lot of us women, we just have so much noise in our head because there's criticism for everything.
Right.
So that it would be such a relief to have that open
E-
acceptance. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, my friend. So Maria will be joining us at
Mhm.
some point soon. And we'll get into that. But
Yeah.
is there anything else you want to say just by way of introducing you? Anything
What's
else I need
using
to say
me?
about introducing me?
Yes, I was going to say, Joan, they don't know who you are. And I mean, I've come to know you, what now? Is it 7? No, 8 years. Is it 8 years? Oh my gosh. And I just am excited because I get the benefit of your incredibly diverse body, mind, heart, and spirit, holistic wisdom, and your open, raw vulnerability about your own being. It just is so rich, and I'm very excited for everyone who, that would be listening or watching to receive that it's very unique blend of so much wisdom and so much experience, and because you dive in and you live this, you're not just talking, you're living it.
Yes, I am. I like to say that my mode is to dive into the deep end and learn to swim, which I've done like time and time and time again. But I'm trained just like you as a clinical social worker, and I worked for many years as a psychotherapist. I have worked as a spiritual teacher and guide in a number of traditions. I love embodiment work.
Yes.
I am devoted spiritually to my kind of ongoing, ever evolving relationship with the divine. Taught and done a whole lot with relationships and codependency. I've been married for 30 some years at this point. Who can even count?
I don't know if Bill would want.
Somewhere around 35 or 36. So I've walked that path. I've raised one daughter. So I've kind of tasted from the buffet of the various experiences that we as women. And I've been a business owner and a creator. I had my own podcast previously, Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow. And this is the next incarnation of that. So I'm a lifelong learner, as someone I know likes to say. I am all about getting in there and living into what I'm learning. And I love to share a good resource. One of my most exciting things is
And I'm always like, what? Give me more.
so excited to share a good gift or resource with someone. So I'm delighted to have this platform and this vehicle to share all of these amazing resources with each of you. So I think we're going to end it with that.
Yes, I can't wait.
Yeah. So thank you for being here. I just want to remind you, if no one's told you, that you are loved and you are love.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today on the Crone Codes podcast. If you appreciated what was shared, please rate, review, subscribe, and comment wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to go deeper into the Crone Codes with curated bonus content created just for you, join our Crone Codes members community on Substack and receive prompts, tools, and resources for your wise woman journey.